You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
There's a place
out where the fake news is muffled,
past the point where politicians get silent,
where facts don't care about your feelings,
where PC is DOA. This is that place. Welcome to the last stop on the right.
All right, belly up to the bar, kiddies. It's going to be that kind of fun.
Wow.
Already we're doing this. It is time to dig in to the last pod on the right. Welcome, my friends. It is I, Ben Crystal.
I am Mike Gable.
And we got a hell of a show for you here today. I feel like I should say that off the bat, so that way when it turns into a complete and total dumpster fire, they'll at least have that one good memory. Remember the first 30 seconds of this nest? This was nice.
It was a blast.
It was great, and then they went downhill from there. We do have a big program. Before we get into it, and we've got a lot of stuff to get into today. We're going to welcome some visitors from out of town to our fair burg. We're here in Savannah, Georgia.
Oh yes.
And this weekend, the Georgia State Republican Party convention is being held. They're right over there in the trade center and stuff. The big, huge facility. So going to be a lot of white people in Savannah this weekend.
Yes.
There's going to be a bunch of white people here. So if you're wondering what's with all the Lily Pulitzer dresses, it's because the Georgia Republican convention is here.
I would assume Stacey Abrams is not visiting this weekend.
I wonder if she's on this. I'll bet she's not in the speaker's room.
Yeah.
Get her up there right before the actual governor. Would that be awkward?
Oh,
and now that she's done, ladies and gentlemen, the actual governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp. You come up and go, yeah, I don't know who she is, man. she just got in here, but we got a lot of Savannah, Georgia stuff happening. So there's going to be that's going to be part of the show now. Man.
Yes, we do.
It's the last pod on the right has we got a Savannah segment coming up for you. We're going to start doing that.
Yep.
Because we got some stuff going.
We always have some stuff.
Well, Savannah's one of those towns, man, and everybody that lives in every town Everybody that lives in any town, they're always like, oh, the local politics are a clown show. They,
Right.
It doesn't matter where you live. You think your local politicians, who in theory should be, have been more accurately representative of the people. You elected these people.
Right,
You're closer
right.
to them. But it doesn't matter where anybody lives. They're always like, oh, God. Our city council are a bunch of monkey asses, man. I'm like, well,
But they vote for him.
Yeah, I'm like,
every time.
And I'm not saying that the Savannah City Council is made entirely of monkey ass, although we have some foolishness that goes on in this town from time to time, which seems odder than it does in other places. We never have like the normal bribery scandals. It's never like mayor caught with a hooker like they have.
Right.
At least in D.C., it's exciting. I mean, when the mayor screws up in Washington, it's usually epic and occasionally does involve hookers and crack.
Yes, it has.
So, at least it's fun to watch. It's like, okay, this was a total disaster, but it was entertaining as hell. In Savannah, it's always this sort of surreptitious, nonsense, or that they are all trying to keep away from the citizens finding out.
Right.
Or it's just like spectacular dumbness, like the national story. Hey, Savannah global exposures a couple of weeks ago, when they had the meeting that white reporters were barred from.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, oh,
yes.
God. So you guys.
But that, fair shake.
That was not city government. No,
at all.
Okay,
that wasn't just
But
an
it was just another one of
but-
those moments you're like, oh, God.
Right.
I live here.
Right.
People call you up and be like, hey, man, don't you live in that town? What's that like? I'm like, well, usually it's really great, but right now it's less than awesome. It's suboptimal at this moment.
Right.
It's like, well, it's entertaining.
It is entertaining. There's no doubt.
We got that going. It's like one of those reality shows. Only this one's not scripted. These people are actually doing this off the cuff. It's like that was your instinct. That would, you thought, hey, I'll put up a sign that says no white reporters. Like,
God, that was
nobody
that's what they
in
did.
your life said before you got that sign taped to the door went, hey, maybe we should rethink this. Yeah, like that never happened.
Nope.
But Georgia politics as well, because we got some stuff going on. Stacey Abrams is back in the news this week.
Imagine that.
I mean, she's like fungus. She will not go away.
Go away.
Oh, God, you're like shower mold. That's right. I just compared Stacey Abrams to shower mold. That's going to cost me down the road.
Boy, we're off to a banging start.
We're killing it, all right. We've offended
off.
everybody. But the Georgia State Republicans are here this week, so we're gonna give them a little bit of a shout out. But we got some real stuff to talk about in Savannah as well. We're not going to take it as seriously as it deserves, but when do we do that?
True.
You are at the last pot on the right. This is not McNeil Lehrer or whatever, okay? You're looking for NPR. They sound like this. Hello, it's NPR.
Yes.
Now, before we get to anything else.
I see you reaching for a beer.
Well, yeah, I was like, before we do anything even less deserving of people listening to it, which I feel like it's time for a pod beer.
Okay.
There's a tradition here at the last pod on the right. We're going to let you guys, I hope that you already have your pod beer. But if you do not, go grab one real quick while we tell you that once a week here on the last pod on the right, because we're allowed to.
Yep.
It just occurred to us that we can totally just guzzle beer on the air. So we're going to do that in 3, 2, 1. Pod beer. Mm-hmm. I noticed you're drinking a man beer today.
Inside of another man beer koozie.
I feel like there's probably some trademark infringement. We're not going to mention, because we don't want to.
Exactly.
Hey, kids, as the last pod on the right has begun to grow rather rapidly, we would like to let you know that potential advertising is, we're ready to talk to you. So we're not going to upset anybody by mentioning that the beer that Mikey's drinking is in a koozie from another beer.
Right.
Because then we just, I guess we're never getting any. And, when I think of advertisers for this program, like who would sound right, I think of things like beer.
Well, yes, actually,
that
really
any of the alcohol industry, we're ready to talk to you.
Yes.
Come check us out on the website, laststopontheright.com. Plenty of ways to contact us there. You can go to Twitter and find me at Bennett Truth. That's 2 E's, 2 N's, 3 T's.
Not all in a row.
There is a Last Stop on the Right Facebook group. Mikey is available. You can find Mikey through there.
Yep. I'm there.
You can go hit him up, and then of course you can email us to the site as well. So when you're ready to talk, we're ready to listen.
Absolutely. Hey, with the pod beer.
Yeah.
And you said
I'm currently drinking my pod
beer. Right. But you said any alcohol.
Well, yeah. I mean, not like rubbing.
We could, well, no. But we could absolutely change it from like pod beer to pod scotch.
That would be fine.
That would be fine by me.
I think that's the kind of American thinking that made America great right there.
I was just kind of tossing that out.
You know what? That's sharp advertising thinking by you. Yes, doesn't have to be a pod beer. It could be a pod scotch on the rocks. How about a pod champagne? You wouldn't hear me complain. How about a little pod prosecco? That'd be nice.
Could you imagine pod champagne?
We would need to have women on the program for that, though.
Yeah,
and there's no woman that would consent to being a part of this. So
very true.
Wait, I got to go sit with the bridge trolls? Okay, no. I thought this was going to be fun, and you said these guys were cool. We are coolness. We've got a lot of stuff coming up today, though, and we want to get to it. As I place the pod beer too close to the microphone, not sorry about that, but we do like to get in. We got a lot of stuff to get into. So, Mikey, do we want to let's take a look at the menu, or do you want to do the rapid fire first? I'm going to leave it to you. I mean, I've already got a beer in me.
Dude, have you never been to a restaurant with me?
I do not care about this. Whatever. But how is this going to help?
I can't make those decisions.
Yeah, good.
I can't.
Lord,
you tell me.
You're such a woman in so many ways. Really. All right. Well, you know what? We'll go ahead. Let's do this first. Let's do the rapid fire first, so that we can pretend to be serious for the remainder of the program. Here's what's going to happen. Mikey is going to pick a topic. I do not know what the topic is, and it will be politically relevant. I assume that it will be. I'm saying that I'm looking over at Mikey what? You do that look like, hey, it'll be politically relevant, right?
What? Are you talking to me?
And then I will have somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 seconds to riff on it off the top of my head. This has generally worked pretty well. The listeners seem to like it.
Generally.
And those of you that have contacted us, we're glad to hear from you always time. But Mikey, what is the target of our rapid fire segment this week?
Well, like the Green New Deal added an ecological twist to history.
This is true. There goes one of the dogs.
The Green and the New Deal. For today's rapid fire segment.
The Green and the New Deal.
The Green and the New Deal.
Oh, because it was it was green and then the New Deal. Okay, so the Green New Deal. Okay,
right. Okay. Would you like an example?
I'm going to need an example here.
You're going to have to add your earthly touch to it. All right.
Okay.
So
history.
So fall of the Berlin Wall.
Okay.
On the border with Mexico.
Oh, okay. So I'm taking something green and historical, putting it together like the fall of the Berlin Wall, history, ... on the border with Mexico, which is somewhat ecologically sensitive. All right. I think I know what you're trying to. Would it be like
you're going to green?
Could it be like if I say in 1942 the Allies needed 3 weeks to defeat the Axis in the Second Battle of Al Gore?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, sure.
That wasn't long, by the way. That wasn't long after they inflicted heavy casualties on one another at the first Battle of El Nino. So, El Alamein, El Nino. Okay. At the Council of Claremont, the First Crusade was called for by Pope Urban Heatbloom. See what I did there? See, this is really lame. I'm enjoying it. These are like dad jokes that we just do here. The Civil War was fought between the Confederate States in the South, right, and the Union States in the North Atlantic Oscillation.
Okay. We'll take that.
Well, do the judges rule that that's an acceptable answer? Thank you, Alex. The Ice Age of discovery was
nice.
Big for European colonization. You like how
nice.
Began the voyages of Prince Henry the Navigator. Prince Henry the Navigator has now been mentioned on this program. I'd like to point out that there is no other politically centered podcast that will mention him this whole year. So
I'm sure
we should get a prize.
I'm sure.
The Kyoto Protocols of the elders of Zion would make both anti-Semites and global warmists happy.
Yes, it would.
Just horrible. This is horrible material that we're working with here. Stone Age humans used tools made of flint. Michigan water crisis.
Yes, now there you go.
See how I did that?
I like
there?
that.
You see how it was like a before and after. It's like a Jeopardy category, but everybody's on mescaline.
Yeah, there you go.
Yup. 19th century American poet Walt Whitman authored "O Captain, My Captain, Planet and the Planeteers." See how I did that?
Yes.
See, okay. Burning at the stake of Joan of Arctic sea ice shrinkage. Stretching hard for that one.
Oh, no.
So I wonder how big was Gutenberg's carbon footprinting press?
Nice.
See, Gutenberg with the printing press.
Yes.
You are learning things today on this program, kids.
Really?
We could go. You're not learning anything of value, but you're learning things. I didn't say it was like quality educational information. This would not get the EI label on Saturday morning TV.
Yeah, well,
how about we go simple like Black Plagues Matter?
Oh, wow.
It's got that yeah, we're gonna burn for that one. Alexander the Great was not a Greek. Did you know that he was not in fact Greek? Yeah,
Really?
The whole world, the Hellenistic culture that launched what we call Western civilization, was not actually spread across the world by a Greek. He was a Macedonian. It was a Macedonian anthropogenic global warming. See, Macedonian anthropogenic global horror. The Christian world was rocked by the publication of Martin Luther's 95 Theses Levels Rise.
Scott.
You know, if we were drinking pod scotch, this would be worse. Okay,
maybe.
It's possible that's incorrect. Most global warmists believe in forcing people to pay a carbon taxation without representation is what started the American Revolution.
Yes, I will. We approve.
You know,
Bing.
Both Mikey and I actually try out for Jeopardy every time they have the online test, and when they get wind of this, they're never going to let us on. Like, you know what? You guys got all the questions right. We just don't like you.
I'm pretty sure they're never going to let me on anyway.
And then can I do one more?
Sure,
one more.
Absolutely.
The March of the Penguins into Portland. Kids, it's the last pod on the right. This is quality podcasting that you've come to expect from us here at the last pod on the right. Well, okay, can we get into? Let's take a look at our target list for today, because we do have a finite amount of time before the feds show up and shut us down. So I'm going to drink some pod beer.
Yes.
I'm going to drink pod beer. You tell us what's on the target list.
You drink first. Abortorama.
Abortorama.
Oh, yeah. Will the abortion debate turn the Constitution against itself?
Will it indeed?
Yeah.
Actually, there is a way that this could get ugly constitutionally fairly quickly. So we will talk about that in a moment or two.
All right. Campaign 2020. Insults continues.
The never-ending story. It's actually like we've gotten past the point where it's, because at first you're like, wow, this is wild that there's so many. And then it's like, oh, my God, there's so many. But now, and then you get back to like, they're still doing this.
They're just, they're multiplying.
Much like fungus or shower mold, as I pointed out. It doesn't seem like such a bad analogy now, does it?
This is a good one. Okay, raising the bar.
This is a good one.
Yeah, I just like that. Raising the
bar. Okay,
the new Attorney General could usher in a new headache for the Dems.
That's true. That is true. He well, obviously, we see how the way they're reacting to him. That obviously they're concerned about what he's going to do. So that's something.
That's right.
Cool.
We got nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun.
Anti-Semitism. Back in style.
Yeah, it's totes cool again
to be
coming
back.
I know. I'm like, much like parachute pants.
Yeah,
it shouldn't come back.
Please,
nobody that's worth a damn is happy to see it back, and yet here it is.
Did you actually have any?
What, parachute pants? No, I did not. I can legitimately attest to the fact that most of the 80s goofy fashion trends went right by me.
That's true.
But then
you were at Juvie or something.
Yeah, I mean,
that, right?
Well, I mean, you just wear that uniform that they give you.
Right.
It's usually orange and it says DOC on the back. and it doesn't matter. Well, sort of in actually, some of them are sort of, like the pants part are kind of loose, like parachute pants.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, they weren't coming from Chess King or anything.
No, they weren't. Oh, man. We've got Arena Dreams.
Yes, that's going to be our Savannah segment.
Yep, the last stop goes local with a look at Savannah's new arena.
We actually did some research this weekend.
Yes, we did.
Actually, this is what happened. Before we get to, we're going to go back to our Abortorama here. The city of Savannah is in the process of building a new city arena. Every city of some size has the Verizon Center or whatever. Not that I'm not suggesting that Verizon has signed on to name this thing. No. But every city of we got about 250,000 people here, and usually you'll have the city arena. We've had the Civic Center for decades, and it's a dump. I mean, it is
built before we were born.
It's a garbage arena. It's generally viewed as a garbage arena. So Savannah's,
it is the '60s multi-purpose type.
It looks like something you would find in like an Eastern Bloc country, that in one of those cities, something the Soviets would have forced, and not even something you would find in Russia,
right?
Like it's something the Soviets would have forced the Bulgarians to build. We're going to talk about, but that got very complicated. That has become a very complicated and expensive proposition. So we're gonna be talking about that a little bit later on when we get to our as yet unnamed Savannah segment.
Okay.
By the way, that's a sponsorship opportunity. Everyone's interested in the Savannah segment. But let's go back to the Abortorama, because this is
nuts.
Well, and it's back. Now we're going to have the abortion debate again, because we have to have it every couple of years.
Right.
And I would preface this by pointing out that this is the wedge issue of the time. It's not about it's not in the social sense that people talk about the censorship and the social media and all that stuff. Well, these are defining issues of our time because the digital interplay between people has never been blah blah blah. And I think but those are time specific. We've been having the abortion debate for forever now, and hey, guess what? We haven't solved it. I know you feel. I mean, you feel somewhat the same as I do about it. That to me, because it's more nuanced than I think most people give it examination worth.
Right.
I mean, that was like Al Sharpton gibberish right there. Let me try that again. The issue is more complicated than it is reduced to in the media. You're either pro-life or you're anti-life, and yeah, but there's more to it than that. It's as divisive an issue as an American can contend with at a political level, because there is absolutely someone out there who thinks the exact opposite of you.
Right. There's no doubt.
No matter where you go. I will say this. We know that because this is back because you've got the new laws in Alabama and Missouri and Ohio and Georgia, varying severity, restricting access to abortion.
Right.
It was last year, the year before that, we were still talking about states threatening the funding of the abortion lobby, the Planned Parenthood people. And that to me seemed like a no-brainer. Obviously, you support that. I don't want my tax dollars going to it.
Right.
I'm willing to accept the fact that I'm probably not pro-life across the border is probably not going to be a national policy.
Right.
That's probably not going to happen. Roe v. Wade could or could not be repealed, bibbidi-bobbidi-boo. But to me, I get the sense that some of these laws are almost like a poke in the eye to the abortion lobby. You see, the anti-lifers are so vicious and so angry all the time. You notice that.
Right.
That you'll have the pro-lifers will go and stand in front of an abortion clinic with their signs. The anti-lifers will go bananas. I mean, you saw that guy Brian Sims, the state representative of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. This dude is an elected official, and he is he's stalking like teenage girls that are pro-life. A homeboy's out there. He's got a video of them, and he's like, and literally offered a bounty to anybody who could find out who they were and where they lived. I'm like, dude, that's but that's the thing is the anti-life lobby gets so crazy, it's almost impossible to. You don't want to bridge the gap with these people,
right?
I mean, I don't want to reach some kind of consensus with someone that thinks it's appropriate to try and dox 13-year-old girls because they're pro-life, and especially if you're an elected official, that's incredibly unseemly. But there he is doing that.
Right.
I'm not interested in reaching consensus with that guy. I'm not interested in hammering out an accord because I know the guy's not going to be willing to move an inch is part of it.
Right.
And then the other part of it is, you know what? He's an asshole.
Yeah.
It's the anti-life crowd is shrill and angry and will not. It's not a baby. It's a clump of cells. Right up. They're moving the goalposts now. We saw with Virginia, Governor Blackface saying, well, post-birth abortion. I mean, it's
right.
What consensus can you reach with someone who thinks that abortion should still be, legal basically until the kid is old enough to evade capture? That's what they keep moving the goalposts back.
Right.
And when we literally have seen them saying, governor of Virginia, this is not the governor of Rhode Island or, the governor of Guam or whatever. This is the governor of the state of Virginia. Washington, D.C. is right there saying, I support this bill offered in the state legislature, the Virginia House of Delegates or whatever, that, if mom changes her mind, basically, after the kid's born, they'll keep it comfortable while we decide what to do. I'm like, that's not, if you're defining that as abortion, then how can I possibly reach a consensus with you of any significance?
That is not abortion. That is murder.
No, literally saying if the kid can somehow grab the car keys and make a bolt for it, then maybe we'll let him go. But other than that, as long as we can bring him down, the kid's like, running down the damn hallway.
That's just kind of messed up. But
but that's the thing is what resolution to the debate over abortion. And with people like that you're not going to be able to reach one with them anyway. But then I will say that I thought the bill in Alabama went too far. I don't think the one in Georgia went too far.
No.
I had no issue with the one in Georgia. I supported that bill. The one in Alabama went too far. And again, I think part of it is the pro-life lobby, represented in the Alabama state legislature was like, well, we know they're not going to work with us. Right. So let's give them exactly what we want.
Right.
Because they're never willing to give an inch. So they went the full other direction. And it did not include an exemption for cases of rape and incest.
Right.
That, to me, I can't support that. And I know the hardcore pro-lifers are out there saying, but that's not the baby's fault. You can't blame the baby. And I understand that, but I don't know, man. I can't look at a 12-year-old who has been raped by a family member and say, I understand that that's a life in there. That's a baby. And it's horrifying, but I couldn't, in good conscience, I could not bring myself to look at a 12-year-old girl who has been raped by a family member and say that you're carrying the kid to term.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. That's me saying.
I agree. Is that the one that...
That's the Alabama bill.
That's the one you figure is that going to go to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, all of these are going to get litigated because you know how the Democrats are. If they lose an election, we just give it to the lawyers and try again. Right. I mean, they're not going to. No matter what happens, they're going to fight. We've seen that since 2016.
Right.
That they will, and it doesn't matter. Trump could come out tomorrow and say, "I'm pretty sure I figured out a cure for cancer," and they'd be like, "Why does Trump hate oncologists?" It'd be like, "Well, they're going to fight. They fight on everything."
Right.
So you're going to go to Alabama, and obviously. And if they didn't think that law, the moment that it hit the boards, wasn't going to end up in the middle of a court battle, I mean, that's coming. But rape and incest.
I get it.
But you got to keep in mind that we're talking about less than 2% of all procedures performed that we know about.
Right.
Okay? It's about 1.5%. So that's 98 to 99% of all abortions are not because of rape or incest.
Right.
So they're saying all abortions all the time for everyone. You shouldn't have to talk to your parents. And in some cases, even if the kid survives, well, bad luck, Junior.
Right.
Best of luck in your future endeavors, that kind of thing. okay, rape and incest, I'm willing. I know Alabama was not. I'm willing to say, okay, you could carve out an exception for that.
Right.
But they did not in Alabama.
Poor choice of words there.
Oh, good Lord.
Sorry, man.
That's really messed up.
Dude,
I wasn't even thinking that. You're a creep, man. Wow. The Last Pod on the Right has been brought to you by nobody because no one would associate with us.
No,
I just, I get what I'm trying to rescue this.
Shall we move along?
But that's where you went with that. Like right off the bat. Like, the first thing I think of when I was like, Thanksgiving? You're like, no, something closer to home. You sick, twisted. But, they've moved the line beyond the birth of the child. We're back here saying if we would be willing to give you an exemption for cases of rape and incest, but what about the other 98 or 99% of procedures?
Right.
Because they're not saying rape or incest they want all abortion all the time. And I'm like, well, that to me, I feel like it's more about the abortion than it is about what's right for baby or mother.
Right.
They just really want that always to be, it's all abortion.
Right.
With any abortion that anybody wants to have at any time for any reason should be allowed and should be taxpayer subsidized, and that's why we're never gonna be able to rectify the debate. We're just gonna have to continue to have these fights where Alabama passes a law and they challenge it in the Supreme Court, and maybe it gets struck down and maybe it doesn't, and then it comes back and they do it again, and we go back and forth and back and forth.
Right.
And I'm thinking, at the very least, could we possibly consider pulling the tax subsidies from the abortionists? At the very least. They won't even allow that.
Right.
The anti-lifers, the Narrells and the Lena Dunhams of the world. Nope. Abortion should be available on demand to anybody that wants one at any time, no matter what the purpose is. No one should have to be notified, and it should be paid for by somebody else. And you don't understand why we're having this discussion.
Right.
That's why Alabama passed that law.
Right.
Because you're going to you might as well go big.
Right.
I like Georgia law better.
Right.
But you mentioned this in the menu, though. There's a Supreme Court issue. There's a constitutional issue here that's going to get sticky fairly quickly. Roe v. Wade was a Supreme Court case, but it did not enshrine in the Constitution the right to have. That doesn't mean that, because the anti-lifers won that case, that doesn't mean they add a bit to the Constitution, like Amendment 29.
Right.
Thou shalt, the right to dilate and extract shall not be abridged or whatever.
Right.
That's not what that means. It just means that they interpreted the Constitution as it stands to include the woman's right to vacuum the kid out of her uterus.
Right.
There is something that is actually in the Constitution that's much more specific that I think is going to be a problem for the anti-life forces, though, and that's the 10th Amendment. Power is not delegated, to the federal government, state people in the states.
Yeah.
And there is a precedent that I'm thinking of specifically because it happened here in Georgia back in like 86, 87. Bowers v. Hardwick. State of Georgia had that law. At the time, it was a dumb law, the anti-sodomy law, which they just used. It was hardly ever enforced, and it was an anti-gay law. We'll just put it right out there.
Right.
Okay? It was an anti-gay law. Guy got arrested. It ended up in the Supreme Court, and most people, I think, would think that the Supreme Court would have ruled on behalf of Hardwick and say, okay, you can't arrest people for being gay.
Right.
Or doing gay stuff, whatever that might be. You can't arrest people for that. But the Supreme Court said, actually, this isn't the right venue, basically.
Right.
As I recall, it was 7-2. They said, well, no, the state of Georgia has ruled on this. Okay, this is not a power delegated to the federal government. So this is a states' rights issue. The federal government has never expressed an opinion one way or another in law about who's sleeping with whom.
Right.
The state of Georgia has. So in the 10th Amendment, and so they gave it back to the state of Georgia, and they upheld the arrest. Now, granted, it was a dumb law, and the people of Georgia, and it represented at the time the will of the people, the voters. That will has changed, and that law, you're not. Right. They don't do that. It was a stupid law and it's gone. People moved past it. But when this Alabama law gets to the Supreme Court, and it'll go to the federal bench, and it'll bounce through a bunch of them, and who knows how those rulings will go. The likelihood is that the Supreme Court will hear it. They always had they could always say, well, we're kicking it back.
Right.
They could do that. But I think more likely you may have the state of Alabama go in and go, the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction here. Whether or not every other state in the union, if every other person except for the close to 60% of Alabamians who voted for Governor Kay Ivey and voted for the people that put this law together, if everybody else is anti it, that doesn't matter because it's an Alabama law in an Alabama jurisdiction. It doesn't. Don't be shocked if that happens. If they go, well, we've got Roe v. The anti-lifers go, well, we've got Roe v. Wade. And then the state of Alabama says, yeah, well, we've got the Bill of Rights.
Right. States' rights.
Well, abortion is not in the Constitution.
Right.
And the Roe v. Wade decision cited things that were in the Constitution, but it's not in the Constitution.
Right.
But states' rights are absolutely right there in the Constitution. Yep. That could be an issue. I'm not sure it's one, because the anti-lifers also tend not to think very deeply. Because they're so into being anti-life, they won't consider. It doesn't matter what you could say, like, hey, if you guys don't pay attention to this, you're going to lose.
Right.
You're not with us, so you're against us. Doesn't matter. It's that nanny, boo-boo, I can't hear you.
I like the blah, 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 blah.
Well, it's just, they immediately just, shout you down.
Right.
Shout, and you see it the way they're treating how these laws came to be as well. For example, both the heartbeat bill in Georgia and the more restrictive law in Alabama they're like, oh, these are anti-woman. I'm like, that doesn't really make all that sense when you think about it, because both the Georgia and Alabama laws were written in part by women. Right. The Alabama law was just signed into law by a governor who's a woman.
Right.
So it's, you start kicking the legs out here a little bit and think there isn't, when you break it down, both from a social justice perspective, these laws, as they're characterized by the Democrat media complex as being anti-woman. Right. So, well, you've got women that were a part of drafting them, writing them, and passing them, and in Alabama's case, signing them. Well, are they not women? Do they not count?
No.
So
obviously,
there's no logic there.
Right.
So you say, okay, well, they're not paying attention. Well, you may have something else, because you may have this. You may have a 10th Amendment argument that obviates whatever the hell you think it is that you're going to do.
Right.
Well, you've got Roe v. Wade. That was a court case. Well, what if Alabama comes in and says the 10th? What if you've got the right mix on the Supreme Court and they say Alabama's right?
Right.
It's a 10th Amendment issue. We're not going to rule either way. We're not touching it because it belongs to the state of Alabama.
Yep.
And that's not the only area, obviously. We could do literally hours on the last pod on the right about this topic. Anybody could do hours on this topic. There's also, speaking of illogical responses to it, you've got like the sex strike. I'm sure you heard of,
Yes.
Well, that started last weekend. The chick that played Sam on Who's the Boss in the 80s. She's the leader of this.
I know.
Her name's Alyssa Milano. It doesn't matter, because she's just Sam from Who's the Boss.
Right.
And she said, well, we're going to go on strike. Women of the world unite with me. And literally, they called it the sex strike. Deprive men of sex until Georgia. This was about Georgia, because when she started it, Alabama hadn't passed their law yet.
Right.
Until Georgia repeals this is what I'm talking about when I say illogical, and that there's no accord that can be reached with these people. An actress famous for an 80s sitcom who has inexplicably become one of the top Democrat spokesholes in the country. I mean, she is a huge.
I know.
She was at the Kavanaugh hearings with because Dianne Feinstein invited her. I mean, she's a big player now, against all logic and reason. So she says last weekend, until Georgia repeals the heartbeat bill, no woman in America join me in depriving men of sex. I'm like, do you guys hear yourselves? So you're going to, in order to eliminate a bill making it harder to get an abortion, you're going to make it impossible to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Are you thinking that through? It's like, well, but you're making an argument for abstinence, by the way, which they usually go bananas when you talk about it.
Right.
Like, okay, so your plan is until Georgia makes it easier to get an abortion. We're going to make it so that you don't have to think about it because you're not going to have any sex. Like you guys realize that you're defeating your. Okay. Pro-lifers are like, fine.
In my case, they're winning. So,
congratulations.
Just saying.
You're a social justice warrior. That's the saddest moment of this program right there.
But they're winning.
This is like our 8th week now, and I believe that was from a Mikey's confidence perspective, where we just dove right to the bottom of the barrel there. But think about it. I mean, even if it's all the hot chicks in Hollywood, right?
Right.
I mean, who's getting deprived of sex here?
Right.
It's going to be like the beta males and the soy boys, the Hollywood types. I'm like, so you're gonna say no. You're gonna give the cold shoulder to liberal guys because conservative dudes are not going to be affected by this,
right?
Unless if conservative women who are in control of conservative dudes' access to sex, they're not going to stop having sex with their husbands and or boyfriends because Sam from Who's the Boss said you should. If you thought that was going to work, I got some bad news for you, kitten. It's like, I mean, that's... And then there are the people that got involved with it and made it even dumber. Bette Midler? Are you really? I mean, the Bette Midler's like, I'm not having sex with anyone until Georgia repeals its heartbeat.
Okay.
And show me the downside. Literally, I didn't even think of that being a potential benefit of the heartbeat bill, but it just got even more support from me.
Sure.
Dudes all over the world are going, guys in like, I don't know, Pakistan, who know who Bette Midler is. And you don't know who Bette Midler is. She is an actress and a singer who manages to be, I put her up there with Fran Drescher from The Nanny. She's one of the most annoying human beings on the planet. Like, she's that kind of irritating. Like dudes on the other side of the world going, can we get heartbeat bill? Will it keep her away forever? It's like, so more benefits? Thank you. Appreciate it. Or like there was the meme going around this week that Rosa DeLauro, the U.S. representative from Connecticut, one of the U.S. representatives from Connecticut, that she was participating. And I'm like, really, the ambassador from the planet Vulcan? Have you ever looked at her? I'm like, who are you threatening with this? You and Bette Midler are saying you're not going to have sex with men or whomever until the Georgia deletes its heartbeat bill. Like, pro-lifers are like, we appreciate the help. Thank you.
Right.
Pushing the law for us. I don't know. They, I will say this. We talked about this week. And we talked with a bunch of people. I do not buy the idea that men do not get a voice on this. Because we're sitting here right now, you're listening to the last pod on the right and thinking, but it's just two dudes. That's another thing where the anti-lifers have moved the goalposts. If you're a man, you can't have an opinion on this.
Well,
we're half the species, so
I was there the first time, Or
you have two kids.
That's what's here. I was there when this predicament started.
Well, exactly. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, we're half the. I mean, I know that women hate to admit it, and sometimes I understand why, but they need us. I mean, there's plenty of times where there's plenty of times where my wife has looked at me like,
"Oh yeah,
this idiot again."
Exactly.
But you need us. I mean, if you get rid of. You run off all the men. Be like, okay, we're just going to get rid of all the men. Because, the real hardcore feminists are like, in a world of nothing but women, it would be happiness and joy. And I'm like, no, y'all be fighting over coupons and stuff. Women will find a way to fight with each other. I'm just saying. I mean, the moment that all the dudes disappeared, they'd be at each other.
Right.
And not in a good way. But they, you get rid of all of us, and we're gonna keep the beta males around. So all the guys would be gone except the douchebags with the chest length beards and the man buns and wearing the skinny jeans.
The guy we saw down the street. The other day
I'm like, okay, those are the dudes that the anti-life feminists consider acceptable. I'm like, okay, go for it. But let me point out to you that when all your shit breaks, because everything, stuff breaks,
right.
Those boys are not going to be able to help you out.
No.
You'll be hosed. Just think of it. Forget it. Putting aside the fact that without men, you're just as extinct as we are. We're all hosed at that point. Right. But what are you going to do? If you need the oil change in your car, or somebody has to move the couch. or something on the top shelf in the kitchen. You can't reach it. Without us, you're host. I mean,
dude, I have that at the grocery store all the time. Short people are always like, man, can you grab that up there for me?
You be like, well, from now on, you're going to have to go get you a stepladder every time you need something because you got rid of all the dudes. And Manny Man Bun isn't going to go up there because he's afraid.
Right.
I guarantee he's afraid of heights. But what is it just a women's issue? I don't feel like it.
I don't either.
I mean, I don't think you can have a discussion on a topic of this magnitude and exclude 50% of the population from it. I don't buy that. You can say, well, you're just a man, because that's an insult. All these men passed this law in Alabama. I'm like, it was co-written by women and signed into law by a woman, but okay.
Right.
You had a bunch of men. What's your point? Well, where's the women's input? Well, I mean, these guys do theoretically know women.
Right.
And one would assume that, obviously, since the makeup of the Alabama House of Representatives was such that this law could get through there and be signed by the governor, a bunch of women had to vote for these cats.
Right.
So do they not count? I mean, you exclude all the men, but what are you going to exclude? I do the anti-life movement, the Planned Parenthood supporters, etc. And I want you to think about this, if they had their way, no one would be allowed to speak on this topic or affect policy on this topic except for them.
Right.
That's not how it's supposed to work in this country.
No.
So I'm just, you can read what you want into it. I'm sure we're going to get some hate mail. And I'm fine with that. We want to hear from you, even if you find stuff objectionable. Just click right through the website at laststopontheright.com and say hi to us.
Right.
We're cool with that. But understand that I'm not suggesting that your viewpoint, if it's different than mine, should be discounted. However, I would point out that the anti-life, the abortion lobby, their actual view of this is they should make all of the laws regarding abortion, period.
Right.
And that it's not even we're not going to debate this with you. You're not supposed to have, if you're a dude or a woman who's pro-life, you're not allowed to have an opinion on it.
Right.
I'm like, well, no, that's not how it works here. It's not how it worked in Alabama, and you see how that worked out for you. Have you guys considered maybe not being so shrill and vicious all the time?
Right.
You might come up with somebody that is more amenable to say veto. Maybe instead of Kay Ivey, you get a woman in there that would say, no, I can't do this, and vetoes it.
Right.
I mean, if I was the governor of Alabama, I have to admit I would have vetoed that law.
Right.
Because it doesn't have the rape and incest exemption.
Right.
And to me, see, of course, I'm a dude, so who cares, right? But to me, that would be a deal breaker.
Right.
Because I can't look at a 12-year-old who's been raped. I mean, it's horror. Even though it's incredibly rare, I couldn't look at a 12-year-old who'd been raped by a family member and say that and say you can't have an abortion.
No.
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't either.
And if you're pro-life and you make the philosophical point that the baby is not responsible for what the circumstances that created it, I will agree with you there. And I understand your point. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
And if I was the governor of Alabama and that bill came across my desk, the heartbeat bill I would have signed, that came through that Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia signed, I would have signed that gladly.
Right.
But the Alabama bill,
a little too far.
Yeah, I just felt like they were kind of coming a little strong to the hoop there. And to me, that's, I'm sure that there's some hardcore pro-lifers out there be like, well, there's a weakness in your attitude. And be like, well,
okay.
I'm willing to accept that.
Sorry.
I'm willing to accept, as long as the beer's free, I'm willing to accept that. Let's move on. Let's move on to the campaign, because we had a big week this week. There are what, 3 more now? Is that right?
23. Is it
23 or 24 now? It's getting a little out of hand. Well, the governor of Montana, who is a Democrat, just that he's running,
right?
And I'm sure somebody got in his ear and said, "Well, Steve, you're a Democrat governor, but of a red state, and you've got cred with the conservatives. We might be able to pull this off. You could come because the rest." And I'm sure he probably looked at it and said, "Well, yeah, because the rest of these guys are all clowns."
Right.
And that's a topic that when we discuss, when the myriad, the legion, the literal battalion, the mob of Democrats running for their 2020 party nomination is so large at this point that you can say, like, I'm sure the governor of Montana went, I might be able to pull this off because these guys are all buffoons. And they are.
Right.
And one of the things that nobody's discussing while they discuss the merits of this candidate or that candidate or whomever is that none of them are very impressive.
No.
I'm going to say, I would say, and I said this in an interview, there's a profile that I sat down for with a local the local newspaper, Connect Savannah, and they'd asked me about it. And I said, well, you have to understand that Trump, Republican, and conservative no longer the same things.
No.
So you would say, I find Trump to be objectionable from time to time.
Right.
I called him the Batman president. He's he's the one we deserve, but not the one we need.
Right.
But they haven't solved the problem they had in 2016 yet, which is give us an alternative that we consider more acceptable. In 2016, they gave us Hillary Clinton.
Right.
2020, I mean, who the hell? Have you looked at these guys?
Couple.
Joe Biden is leading, okay, by the curvature of the earth. They got polls out now. They're saying Biden is would win over Trump in a hypothetical. They said that in 2016.
Okay.
A lot.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm not 100%. After I saw that rally when he did the announcement in Pennsylvania, I'm not 100% sure that all of Joe's dogs are barking. You're still 18 months from the election, and this guy's already on the fritz.
Right.
I mean, you're going to replace him under warranty, you better jump to it. I'm going to guess, considering the fact that he's closing in on 80 years old, I'm pretty sure he's out of warranty. So if the Biden bot is on the fritz, I think you got a problem.
Right.
And that's your lead guy. I mean, you've seen, and he's got some rough patches ahead of him, too. He's leading right now. Everybody loves Joe, but the woke kids don't like him.
Right.
I mean, he's a wealthy, close to octogenarian white male. The dude he checks none of the boxes.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he checks none of the boxes. And the radical left has become the heart of the Democrat Party now. What was far left is now just left. And you look at, they're like, Biden is too moderate. I'm like, Joe Biden is not a moderate.
Right.
But they're saying, oh, he's too moderate. Well, that's a problem he's going to have to solve. How do you get the kids on board?
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of Democrats, they're going to listen to this. You're going to say, well, Ben, he didn't have to get him on board because when they get to the next fall, it's not like they're going to choose Trump. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you're making the assumption they'll choose anybody.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's not like kids aren't, the younger set upon whom the Democrat Party thinks it's resting its 2020 hopes. It's not exactly news that they're not always great about getting to the polls for a variety of reasons.
Right.
Because they're angry or because they forgot or because they went out last night and totally raged and I just completely forgot about it. I mean, we're talking about 20-year-olds in some cases. I mean, a lot of the, 20 to 20. Millennials are largely morons. I mean, so they're assuming that just because it ends up being Trump versus Biden, that everyone will just go to Biden. I'm like, a lot of these kids don't need a lot of extra propulsion to completely fail.
Right.
I mean,
right.
You don't have to really work too hard to get a millennial to screw up. So you're assuming that they would show up at all if they didn't like the person that you chose.
Right.
That's Biden's problem. And then, he's also got that Ukraine thing, and that could be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just his past statements. I mean, dude supported a border fence for the war on drugs. I mean, imagine selling that statement to a mob full of Antifa goons.
Right.
They're going to be like, wait, fence plus war on drugs, we're anti-everything that guy just said, is going to be their attitude. So good luck selling that. Be like, hi, I'm Joe Biden. I'm almost 80 years old. I have more money than almost all of you put together. And by the way, I supported a border fence to keep the really good weed out of the U.S. It's like the entire state of California just said no to Joe. Right? Nah. that badass dankety dank bud you were getting from Oaxaca. Yeah, it's gone because Joe got his fence. Yeah, you're like, well, I am not voting for that fool.
Hell to the no.
Hell to the no. So that's Biden, and then you got Bernie behind him. Well, but Bernie isn't a legitimate threat to win, and I think Bernie legitimately thinks he can win.
Right.
And I know that his own party, the Democrats, we know for a fact that Donna Brazile got caught doing it with was it CNN or whichever network. She got caught feeding questions.
Right.
She was helping Hillary Clinton rig the debate.
Right.
So we know they cheated him last time, but I still don't think he would have won the nomination.
No.
He's not going to win it this time. I mean, sorry, he is just Bernie Sanders is the professor from Tom. Remember Thomas Dolby? She blinded me with science. And there's the guy that like every now and then science. That's Bernie Sanders. That is not a guy that is going to be a legitimate presidential candidate. You can't take him serious.
No.
So you got and there's so many of them behind him. You've got there's like Kamala the cop, pistol packing Mama Kamala. She's back there. She's going to have some interesting times ahead of her as well, because one of them, if they think she's a threat, will bring up the fact that she slept her way to the top.
Right.
That'll come up.
Yep.
The Willie Brown thing will come up. And that, she's out there taking shots at guys like Mike Pence. Right. Like, I don't understand. It's bizarre that he won't eat dinner with a woman unless his wife is there. And I'm like, well, I can see why she would feel that way, because if Willie Brown had that rule, she'd still be hustling for slip and falls at the hospital.
Wow.
Why she? So that's going to come up, and that's going to bite. Also, she used to be a cop. She put a lot of nonviolent drug convicts in prison.
Right.
She put a lot of them. There's another one. The Antifa is going to love that. Beto is already reintroducing. He already rebooted his campaign. I'm like, dude, you're barely into it, and you've already rebooted. Beto mania is over.
This guy is.
He's done. And I mean, did you see the thing with the video relaunch and he's getting a haircut?
Yes.
I'm like, am I watching this? I mean, is this actually unfolding? Beto O'Rourke, who wants me to take him seriously as a presidential contender, is talking to me about getting his ear hair trimmed. I'm like, well, instead of telling me about it, go tell Bernie, because good Lord, dude.
Do the brother a favor.
Somebody hook a brother up with some trimmers. Be like, yo, Bernie, we got to get this under control. It looks like you brush your hair with a balloon, okay? I just, homeboy sneezes and it looks like a party favor, okay? Go talk to Bernie, Beto. Don't bother us. That's a disaster, and somebody needs to stop telling him to. Somebody needs to tell him to stop doing the Spanglish things.
Right.
Have you noticed when Beto gets into trouble, like if he gets himself painted into a corner, tongue-tied, he starts speaking Spanish. But if you listen, he's actually not speaking Spanish. He's butchering Spanish. He's doing Spanglish. It's like, hey, man, I'm really in no trouble right about hero. It's like it's not real Spanish. I'm like, that's kind of racist, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, I'm sure he's probably high.
Right.
He had the thing on The View. He was like, no, I don't get high. I'm like, oh, you were such a liar. Because I think it was one of The View. I call that the hen house.
Right. Him and Whoopi were in the damn dressing room.
I have a hard time believing that him and Whoopi did. And she wouldn't like, yo, man, check this bone out. Like, what's up? All right, Whoopster. Yo, we'll be right there, okay? Step into the green room with me, Whoopi. And, we'll blaze up. It's like some fat, diggity, dank joint that Whoopi's got carrying. This is speculation.
Yes,
however, they did ask Beto O'Rourke, Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, if he got high. And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh, you just lied. There's no way that the Facebook video that he did from the kitchen, if he wasn't high for that, that's terrifying.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, wait a minute, he's just like that?
He's like that.
If he's just like that all the time, there's no way. This cat, I wouldn't let him drive the Mystery Machine, much less ship. I'm like, dude, really?
It would be like letting Shaggy drive it.
Can you imagine this cat up a Beto O'Rourke against Vladimir Putin? It's like, you've got evil Mr. Furley, and then you've got Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo.
Yep.
It's like, dude, Vlad, not cool, man. Yeah. You could replace the presidential limo with the Mystery Machine.
Yes.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Where are you? I mean, just Beto O'Rourke is Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo series.
Yes.
Vice President's going to be a gigantic Great Dane that can talk.
Yeah, I hope.
Beto Scooby 2020. We will both eat the Scooby snacks. We're that high.
That's what I was going to say. All the Scooby snacks. Yeah,
and then the president of the United States gets caught raiding the Scooby snack box. It's like, dude, I'm sorry, I'm so high right now.
Sorry, man.
Is that a guy you want in charge of the nuclear football? Dude, it's out there going, yo, man, check out my ear hair. No, I don't want to check out your ear. Go tell Bernie to deal with his ear hair.
Right.
And you could cut it off and give it to Joe, and he could use it to replace whatever the hell that thing's going on his head. Hair, you know what? Hair plugs don't work because you just end up looking like you got a tree farm on your head.
Yep. It's got that pattern to it.
It just doesn't. It's like, man, that doesn't look natural. That don't look natural.
That ain't right.
Now this don't look natural, Coach. Behind them, you got Pocahontas, and her big gamble now is that she said this week she's not going to do it. She won't show up on Fox News for a town hall, calling them hatred for profit. I'm like, okay, that's probably going to win. That's a great line with the lefties,
right?
Like, yeah, is that a presidential candidate? See, and here's the question. You hear these guys hone in on what's going to be their signature issue because they're all going to have one.
Right.
Whether it's her or Biden. Biden can't adequately express what he's trying to say. So we may never know what Biden's wedge issue is. Bernie wants college to be free. Bernie wants everything to be free, but he wants college to be free. He said, I guess it was yesterday, that he couldn't help but notice that the price of a 4-year degree has gone up by like 3,800% since 1965. And he didn't mention that in 1964 is when the government started subsidizing student loans. So, why did it go up? Because the colleges knew that the government was backing the loans.
Right.
But Elizabeth Warren's appears to be, I hate Fox News. That's not a great campaign, though. That's a watered down version of Hillary. Everybody that's not with us is deplorable. Remember, she
right.
Forget about Wisconsin. I'm going to tell you this right now. Hillary Clinton lost the election the moment she thought it was okay to start saying if everyone who's not on our side equals bad. Because immediately she guaranteed that 55 million Americans weren't going to consider her no matter what.
Right.
So that left her with everybody that was a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, and then she'd have to convince some other people to get on board. And she couldn't do it. She didn't leave herself with enough of a potential audience.
Right.
People that were on the fence about Trump and saying, I will vote for Hillary, I'm a Republican, but Trump's garbage. But then she said, no. If you're even considering, you're in the basket of deplorables. She made hostility her campaign,
right.
And that's when she lost. Warren is doing the same thing and thinking it will work. It didn't work last time.
I'm cool with that.
Well, I just, and she's got all the other stuff that, she's dragging a lot of baggage, Well, she's dragging a lot of. She's got the TP and the war paint, and all that stuff you got. And they just, they didn't have the wheel back then. So she's pulling diddly point squad, and her strategy is to say the same things that Hillary did, but slightly differently. Like, we've already heard that. And also, you're another wealthy white senior citizen.
Right.
Okay, and keep in mind, this is a woman who thinks college should be free, but she made a close to $500,000 to teach one class at Harvard, and is very wealthy.
I could do that if anybody needs.
I will read them nursery rhymes for $500,000 a year.
Hell yeah,
hell man, I'll go kick it in Cambridge. So they and then there's the rest of the. You keep in mind that we've just done a bit here on the last pod on the right on each of 4 or 5 Democrat presidential candidates. There are nearly 20 more that we have not mentioned. Bill de Blasio is now running.
Yeah.
The moment he said that, my first thought was, I hope that the clown car has a sunroof. Because you got to, Stretch is gonna. We got to put him somewhere.
Right,
the dude's like 9 feet tall. It'd be like having Lurch, but in the clown car.
Well, I figure they've already moved up to the magic bus by now or something.
But he's in there, and this guy, I think he's funny though, because it's his. Did you see that? I mean, he. First of all, I'm not certain if they had a mayoral election in New York City right now. I'm not certain that de Blasio would win.
Right.
I mean, he's not that popular at home. And it's like this guy gets off the plane in New Hampshire or Iowa, and it's like a space alien.
Right.
And I'm like, this is the most just dislikable reason people don't like New York guy I can imagine. The only way he could be less approachable to people outside of New York is that he walked around like a tracksuit. Like one of those Joey Bag of Donuts types that used to live down in Little Italy and be sitting on the sidewalk with the belly hanging out and be like, hey, yo. You should vote for me.
Yo, Rock.
You should. That's Philadelphia.
My bad.
You should vote for me because I don't think you want to vote against me if you know what I'm talking about. All right. I mean, that's de Blasio.
Right.
He's threatening people like, vote for me or I might kill you.
He's the hot dog guy, right?
Yes, he banned. We're not going to have hot dogs.
Screw that. I'd never even considered voting for him.
Just based on so he has lost the Soubrettes block right there.
Exactly.
Like if
Nathan's fans.
If you are not a fan of the smoked meats, then you're. If you are a fan of the smoked meats, then you are not a de Blasio guy.
Exactly.
Among other reasons, but his campaign will be entertaining though. Like, speaking of entertaining campaign, we've already done that here. Because that guy he's a nonstop circus. Every time de Blasio does something, it's a total debacle. He killed the groundhog. Remember they had the groundhog? De Blasio, they've been doing it for years. I know they had the big one out in Punxsutawney with Punxsutawney Phil, but de Blasio did this groundhog thing. It was like 3 years ago for Groundhog Day. Dude killed the groundhog on TV.
Whoops.
I'm like, how do you screw up everything you do? De Blasio does it. And, now he's going to run for president of the United States. And he had his big announce-o-matic video. He was like, we're going to, he had the big, it looked more like a mob than most things. It was no organization. But he shows up and he has it in front of Trump Tower. Because, he's going to be a dick.
Right.
Well, of course.
Right.
They've all got to be, the New York guys all be assholes to each other. He's like, I'm going to go stick it in Trump's thumb in Trump's eye. And of course the libs are like, I totally own Trump. He had his announcement in front of Trump Tower, ha ha, because he's the mayor of that city. And like, they think he's getting Trump for that. It's all set up. And as he gets into his thing, all of a sudden on the escalator behind him appears Trump supporters with signs saying Trump 2020, de Blasio is the worst mayor ever. And I'm like, God, dude. Every single thing Bill de Blasio does turns to mud.
I mean,
now,
just doing it in front of the building. I mean, you're free advertisement for Trump,
but I saw what he was trying to do.
Right.
It was like,
I do too.
I'm doing it in front of your building, but it's in my city. Ha ha. But then Trump, I'm like, stop trying to game this guy. Stop playing against Trump because he's going to get you every time. I guarantee you, I didn't guarantee you, would not shock me at all if those signs those dudes were carrying were like in a closet near the reception desk upstairs. Just because the Trump organization seems like the kind of people that would think ahead. What happens if one of these numbnuts, you get some hammerhead like de Blasio is going to do something right out in front of our building, something that Trump would think of.
Yep.
Be like, that could happen. So make up a couple of signs, get a couple of minions, and be like, all right, just go up and down the escalator holding up the Trump signs.
Yep.
30 seconds of planning 6 months ago for Trump just ruined de Blasio's moment.
Right.
And I'm like, ha back on you. Ha back. You thought you were going to get something out of there, but it's still the same thing, dude.
Yep.
We talked about it here before on the last pod on the right. They're not over 2016, and they haven't figured out how to get over it.
No, they sure hadn't.
Because they're all clowns.
They are.
But they are all clowns.
Right.
They don't even have a Hillary Clinton. I mean, who's the senior statesman? It's Joe Biden.
Yep.
And who's the young upstart? I guess it's Buttigieg. Well, the kid he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana.
Right.
And they tried to get Trump with him yesterday. They're like, hey, did you know Buttigieg, something about Buttigieg and his husband. I can't remember what it was like. They're celebrating their anniversary or something. And Trump's like, okay. I think they were thinking they were going to get Trump to pander to the anti-same-sex marriage people.
Right.
The evangelicals.
Right.
But so they were like, we're going to do this. Trump's going to say something objectionable. We're going to make a whole story out of it. Trump's like, cool. But, that's...
Happy anniversary.
Your young upstart is a dude that doesn't really have that much traction. Because he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and he's a little bit of a wet rag. He's not an impressive guy.
No, not really.
He's very Dukakis-y. It's sort of like, he's
good.
Not devoid of intellect. He's obviously he's a Rhodes Scholar. He's got a decent enough resume for a Democrat, but unfortunately he's got a decent enough resume so the Democrats are going to hate him.
Right.
Because he's not some wingnut left-wing wacko. He's not out there saying... So, but I'd say Buttigieg is probably Buttigieg, however you want to say it, or however he says it, is probably the least objectionable person in their field. But there's 23 other people, including a dude who thinks he's Spartacus.
Oh, yes.
One of them thinks he's Spartacus. So yeah, it's because they haven't gotten over 2016.
Right.
So, sure, Warren's back there in her teepee making her emergency phone calls, whatever. I'm like, you have no chance.
Emergency smoke signal.
They have other problems, though. We know that. We shift gears here at the last pod on the right. I want to throw a quick shout out to all the people in town in the Savannah area for the Georgia State Republican Convention. Also want to show some huge love to kids at KLRN Radio. Mm-hmm. Check them out. They got some great programs. In addition to this dumpster fire, they have some great podcasts in the KLRN Radio Podcasting Network. Go check it out. Check out their Spreaker channel. You can get all of their programs, and they've got some really good stuff on there. You want to check, the Foo is on there, and from Twitchy.
Right.
Politibunny from Twitchy. Literally, she's on there. Orty, who remains the coolest Amish guy on the internet.
Right.
Rod Eccles is on there. Rick Robinson, all that. The whole gang. Stacy. From Resurgent, she's on there.
Somehow us.
And also us. Well, you got to fill up the weekend with something. It's either that or one of those John Tesh infomercials. It's either the last pod on the right starring Ben and Mike, or it's John Tesh and Connie Selica trying to sell you on reverse mortgages or something. I don't know, whatever somebody buy at a time.
That might actually be worth more.
Flexi Seal. Coming up next on KLRN Radio Podcasting Network. Hi, I'm Billy Mays for Flexi Seal. That guy's dead. We shouldn't make fun of him.
And I always wondered if that stuff worked, but
Flexi Seal?
Yep.
I
just wondering.
Now that we're opening up the last pod for potential advertising, I'm reluctant to say I have. I'm sure it's awesome, because maybe the next edition could be brought to you by Flexi Seal.
Maybe.
I'm sitting in this rowboat made of Flexi Seal.
Yeah, we could put that in here.
Have you seen that? Have you seen? It's fairly cool, but then I'm thinking why? The amount of Flexi Seal you use, you just go get it another rowboat.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
It's a rowboat. It's not like, hi, I'm sitting in this aircraft carrier made of Flexi Seal. That would be something.
That would be impressive.
It's like a rowboat. And wait, if you act now, we'll get you Smoxy Clean or whatever with it. But we shouldn't make fun of them.
No.
Because it appears to work. But the Democrats, as we shift gears here on the last pod on the right, have other problems. Not the least of which is that the new Attorney General is a marked change from the Obama era attorneys general.
Yes,
and he's going after him now. The thing with Pelosi, they were at an event. Both Attorney General Barr and House Speaker Pelosi were at an event in Washington earlier this week, and you want to talk about master game here. Homeboy says to her, as they're passing each other in the crowd, he says, "Hey, Madam Speaker, did you bring your handcuffs?" I'm like, oh, damn. Homeboy is cold. That's stone cold ownership right there. Did you bring your handcuffs, Madam Speaker? And I'm like, first of all, hails to the yeah. But that's a sin there. I know it's a ha-ha funny, but that's a sign right there.
Right.
That is Attorney General Barr saying to her, you didn't get me. And now I get, you took your shot, you missed. So here comes Big Daddy. And Trump is all about getting him. He's talking this morning about, as we're recording this on a Friday afternoon, Trump was out there this morning talking about treason and stuff, because it has become readily apparent that the investigation in the entire Mueller probe was based on basically just a huge series of fabrications by people connected to the Obama administration.
Right.
And we know that the dossier that they used to justify the FISA warrant was totally bogus. So none of that worked. Lily. We have dogs here, by the way. You hear those in the background. The FISA warrant itself was obtained under false circumstances. You do that in a criminal court, you lose a conviction.
Right.
So there is something worth investigating. I think what you heard from Barr, just with that little joke to Pelosi, but also he's made the remark since then. He said, well, listen, that was the partisan witch huntery is over, and now we're going to get to the bottom of how this all happened.
Right.
Because you're talking about, among other things, it's not just a $30 million expenditure, that the Mueller report ate up in this we're going to get Trump thing. It's that all this time, all this effort, all this discord, and it wasn't healthy for the country.
Right.
We're going to get to the bottom of this. Because it's some people in the Obama administration went above and beyond what the law allows them to do in an effort to get Trump, then they will be facing some consequences, is what's happening.
Right.
So, you guys got to have 40 people in your clown car by the next week. Like, I mean, at some point, there are going to be so many Democrats running that they're going to run out of, they're not going to be able to fundraise.
You're right.
Be like, you'll pick up the ring, ring. Hello, fellow taxpayer. Have you considered that Bernie Sanders is the lone Democrat amongst all of the 2020 contenders who, let me stop you right there, buddy. Bernie? Yeah. It's me, Pete. Okay, I'm running against you, dingus. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't update our donor list. I mean, they'll just you won't be able to call anybody,
right?
Because you'd be talking to an opponent. Be like, this guy's on the Democrat fundraiser list. Let's call him. Yeah, he's running as well. So, who can we call? We can't call anybody at this point. But they,
they're all gone.
They can have 100,000 million people in their clown car. Literally every registered Democrat in the country could be running for president by the end of next month, and that will not change the fact that Barr, as the Attorney General of the United States, has clearly been given the green light by the President of the United States, not the Speaker of the House, not the Chairman of the Democrat National Committee, not the former Attorneys General, Lynch or Holder, not President Barack Obama. Whether they like it or not, Donald Trump is the president of the United States and has the authority to direct his attorney general to use the assets of the Department of Justice to look into what we already know were at least some fraudulent circumstances used by the Obama administration to go after Trump,
right,
and then justify the Mueller probe. So, I mean, it's not going to be discordant. And the guy he picked out was Durham. Mm-hmm. For U.S. attorney from the state of Connecticut. Dude is a bulldog. Like, you guys might want to think about piling fewer people into the clown car. Start thinking about how many you can fit into the prison bus. Because it's possible. You've got a guy like Eric Holder. I would love to see him go down. I don't know if they'll get him because he probably isn't all that connected to it. But Loretta Lynch. I mean, yeah. I know everyone's always fond of saying, lock her up and talk about Hillary Clinton. I'm going to tell you right now, you'll never put Hillary Clinton in prison. No. It won't happen. Mm-hmm. But Loretta Lynch could do time. I'd be cool with that. Mm-hmm. I would be cooler with that than I am with a lot of things that I see out of Washington these days. Do you know, again, we'll shift gears here at the last pod because, we got other stuff to do. But did you know that anti-Semitism is totes cool again?
Yes.
Everything old is new again, my friend.
Yes.
Can you believe that? I mean, I know you're a student of history. I mean, I know you're fascinated by, especially World Wars I and II.
Right.
Well, World War II, you wouldn't think it would be so far out of people's memories that they wouldn't remember the Holocaust. The majority of Americans do not know either what the Holocaust was or how severe it was. Mm-hmm. At this point, you live in a country where those memories have faded that much.
That's absolutely right.
And now I think that's part of why you're seeing this.
Right.
You have Congresswomen Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar in they're having some kind of Jew off. Like, who can hate the Jews more? I don't know what that's about.
Right.
That is happening because people don't learn things the way they used to. Nobody that knows what the Holocaust is could possibly support the kind of rhetoric I'm hearing from those two. And you had Tlaib again out this week because, I guess it was her week. I don't know, maybe they'd switch off. Like, Ilhan Omar says something impossibly anti-Semitic one week, and then Tlaib comes in the next week and okay, it's your turn. But she said that she felt comforted, she said, by thoughts of the Holocaust because of the sacrifices that Palestinians made to welcome the survivors to the Holy Land. And I just whacked the microphone. Can you imagine that falling out of your head unless you have to be completely devoid of knowledge of everything that happened before about last weekend.
Right.
To actually come out with that statement and think that that's not going to cost you.
Right.
She said that. She said that she was comforted. First of all, there's no room in the universe for saying comfort and Holocaust in the same sentence and thinking you're going to get away with that.
No.
But then, and she's already stated on the record, she supports groups like Hamas. So, I mean, you're connected to CARE, you're connected to Hamas.
Right.
And Hamas, those guys are the heirs to, keep in mind, kids, that the Palestinians, or the people who were living in Palestine at the time, they were friends with Hitler. Legitimately.
Right.
Like, they traveled to, there are photographs of the Grand Mufti of the area going. I think they went to like Czechoslovakia and met Hitler and had like a ceremony with him where they, they asserted their shared belief that all Jews should be killed.
Right.
And then when the Jews got to the Holy Land, keep in mind that it had been theirs before they had been kicked out of it. So the Jews, if you want to go say assert a historical claim to the land, the Jews beat the Palestinians by the mile because the Palestinians didn't exist and the Jews have been in the area for, 4,000 years.
Right.
But you put that aside and say, when the Jews showed up in the 40s, after World War II, after the Holocaust, which had been supported by the locals.
Right.
The locals then immediately set about trying to kill all the Jews that were showing up. So, yeah, her statement is not, it's not just mind-numbingly stupid, it's also historically wrong. You say, well, how could we arrive at a moment in the United States of America, in the free world, anywhere in the world, where people are honest, at least in private, about things that have happened in history?
Right.
You are denying that the Holocaust took place, essentially. You're denying aspects of it that were kind of key to it. And then getting away with it. And, of course, the moment she got criticized for it, her response was, well, anyone's criticizing. It's the same one that Omar uses. Mm-hmm. It's the same. It's a version of the same one that Democrat women use all the time, which is, if you are criticizing me, then you're Islamophobic.
Right.
Like, well, no, but you're anti-Semitic.
Right.
But they get away with it because people don't know what they used to. It used to be that, well, I mean, when you and I were kids in the 80s, there were if you lived in any kind of sizable area where there are more than a few people, any mid-sized city and up, you're probably going to run across either a Holocaust survivor or a child of one.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I mean, a place like Savannah, there's a sizable Jewish population here. I did not live here in the 80s, but I have no doubt that if I had been here in the 80s as a kid, I probably would have met an actual Holocaust survivor because they do have quite a few Jewish people here. You live in the New York area, the Boston area, Chicago, obviously L.A. I mean, anywhere south of about Orlando and Florida. In the 80s, you would probably have met someone who was there.
Right.
I remember meeting people that had the tattoo on their arm. Mm-hmm. They still had the numbers. There are none of them left, or very few of them left.
Right.
You keep in mind that someone that was a baby that survived the Holocaust is now approaching 80 years old.
Right.
So there's not a lot of them left. And keep in mind, if somebody that went through and lived a dietarily and nutritionally and stress-wise like an exemplary life, making it to 80s good. I mean, that's an old person.
Right.
Now imagine somebody who went through whatever the hell they went through in the Holocaust and survived that and are still alive. That is an individual of an unusually hardy constitution. But there are not a lot of them left.
No.
So it's passing from memory. What happens is people forget. So then you get at the exact moment that the final people who lived through it, who saw it, what the Holocaust was, one of the great political crimes of human history. And now it's as the people that were witnesses to it are fading out. You get Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and the people who support them who are now saying basically they're denying it or associating with people who are denying it.
Right.
I think they can get away with that because they, anti-Semitism, because now it's being Muslim, you get a victim status that a Jew used to get. Of course, they're, but the Muslims have never been subjected to anything like the Jews have been subjected to.
No.
And I will admit that there are people out there who are unnecessarily biased toward all Muslims. And usually such a thing exists. But nobody has ever faced repeated attempts to exterminate them like the Jews. And now we're back to the same language that we were hearing it, that, if you're a Jew, you probably, have people in your life that have told you about the rhetoric that the Germans started using in the 20s.
Right.
Be like, we're starting to hear that again. Mm-hmm. Everything is old. Everything, it's proverbial, of course, it's literally in Proverbs, but everything is old is new again. We get accused here at the Last Pod on the right of, you guys are Zionists. I'm like, well, I guess you would call me that. I believe that the Jews have a right not to be exterminated, and I believe that Israel has a right to exist. And I believe that their enemies are frequently really bad actors. You know, I mean, okay, I guess I'm sympathetic to them. I can't be a Jew.
Right.
For a variety of reasons, not the least of which involves bacon cheeseburgers. Let me put that out there. They can't have bacon cheeseburgers. If you're Jewish, you can't have a bacon cheeseburger.
I know.
I cannot imagine a universe in which I was not allowed to eat a bacon cheeseburger. I wouldn't want to live in it. So, you know, I'm out of but that doesn't mean you have to be, like, that's not a choice. You don't have to be a Jew to support Jews' rights not to be murdered by Islamo-fascist terrorists who are supported by members of the U.S. House of Representatives. All right, we want to get away from that because I want to, as we get going here, we got a few other things. And I want to do the Savannah segment.
Yes.
I want to talk about this. All right, for those of you who are local to the Savannah area, here on the last pod on the right, we're going to start doing this every week. Okay, it's going to be a segment specifically Savannah, Georgia-esque, I guess.
Right.
But Savannah certainly this week, so we welcome you to that. Mikey, earlier this week, what was it? It was last week's council meeting.
Yep.
That the city council. All right, you know what? You have a better handle on it.
Basically, they panicked because
panicked over what?
The new arena deal. So they're wanting to build a brand new arena,
building a new arena. They've been talking about it for decades.
Which again, like we talked about earlier, it's more than welcome because the old one's a piece of crap.
Yeah, it's a dump.
So
it is
easily do.
It
that.
is. It literally looks like something the Soviets made everybody else build in the 60s and 70s.
Right, and they've had their money allocated, or getting it in.
Right,
but then all of a sudden they've got this $45 million shortfall.
Okay, so you're talking about the money that was the budgeting for the new arena was short.
Yep.
So last week the city manager says out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, it was kind of they called it an emergency bond deal.
Okay, so $45 million in new bonds.
Yep.
In revenue bonds.
Yep, revenue bonds. They are they're dependent on the general operating cost of the Civic Center, which so as soon as they start doing this one,
well, it's still a bond. It's still backed by the full faith and credit of the city of Savannah. Whatever the hell that's
well.
Put that out there that necessary. Savannah is not AAA rated.
Right.
These bonds are BAA1.
Was it B? Was it that? I thought it was A1.
I think we're BAA1, but it's not awesome.
Right.
It's just fine.
Right.
It'd be like if you were a person, you had a credit rating around 675.
Right.
Okay, so that's
$45
$45 million in bonds will be sold.
Yep. They're revenue bonds, depending on the revenue they're getting in.
I know I'm wandering away from the microphone because I'm drinking pod beer, but
that's okay.
Is that enough? Will that cover?
No, absolutely. I don't think it is because
there is an emergency. I need to get back toward the microphone. This is an emergency bond issue that will not cover the shortfall anyway, from what you've examined.
Right.
I mean, do you believe that?
Well, I mean, it will probably cover the shortfall of the actual arena, but the location that they're putting it is just it's a dump. I mean, it's not.
Well, I mean, you're not going to put it in a nice neighborhood because you're going to have to. You don't want to uproot half of the historic district.
Right. But it's a dump, and there's very little.
Well, I mean,
very little infrastructure through there. So, if you're planning on a place where you're trying to get 9,000, 10,000 people into it, you got to be able to get them in and out of there.
Right.
And there's really no way to.
I thought there was there is an interstate interchange right there.
There is, but it's just one.
Right.
I mean, that's the only.
Okay, so
one.
Infrastructurally, the place isn't ready, but
well, they're going to have to come up with money to do all of that.
Well,
I would imagine.
My concern is not that they haven't sufficiently planned for it, because if you've lived in Savannah for more than 10 minutes, you will know that when it comes to major infrastructural projects, they never sufficiently plan for anything.
The prime example, the Truman Parkway.
Well, the Truman Parkway was a debacle in so many. Kids, we have Savannah does not have a full beltway. Most cities that are approaching the 500,000 mark, they usually build one because you get people around it. If you just throw everybody into the middle of the city all the time, traffic would be insane.
Right.
They sort of have an east side turnpikey thing.
Right.
That I guess is a freeway that's supposed to work sort of like a
Probably about, 15, 20 miles? Maybe?
Yeah, and it literally took them like 70 years to build
At least that.
I mean, literally. But then I look over, they've got a major project they've been working on over on the river, which has gone through multiple iterations, was even considered as an arena site at one point.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
The Savannah River, whatever. They've been clearing land and screwing around over there for closing in on 20 years now. 15 for sure.
You're talking about down here,
literally on the river,
right off of President Street.
Yeah. So if you're not from Savannah, you're like, whatever, dude. And I'm thinking it's still entertaining and you still learn things. So stick around here at the last pod on the right. But we're focusing on Savannah specific issues right now in this new arena. So $45 million emergency bond issue. Which and it'll get paid for. I mean, that's, they're not going to sell the bonds or whatever, but you don't think it's enough anyway.
No, probably not.
Right. I mean, so then they come back and they ask for another bond issue, or they gamble on another special purpose local option sales tax, which would be the 7th of these, by the way. The last two have both SPLOST 6 and SPLOST 5. Both had funds allocated specifically toward the arena. Mm-hmm. So we are now headed toward, I think it's this fall, they're going to ask us, the Savannah city voters, to consider another special, extending what they do is it's a 1% sales tax.
Right.
It is assessed locally, collected locally. Mm-hmm. And the city has used the tourism board and the Chamber of Commerce to push this repeatedly. And so, just most of these pennies will come from dollars spent by Tourons, et cetera. And it's going to be paid by people out of town. And, they had the fund, one of the bond issues, might be this one, was guaranteed by the rental car tax. Mm-hmm. That they assess on people that rent cars in Savannah. So they're like, well, like that, the SPLOST has been sold in its now 6th and coming up 7th iterations as a penny that most Savannian, that mostly will be paid by visitors.
Right.
We say, well, it's a sales tax, so it's mostly be paid by. It isn't mostly paid by visitors. It is visitors to our fair city do pay quite a bit of it.
Right.
But if I go to the grocery store and buy groceries, I'm paying it. Yeah. So they're going to ask for another renewal of that this fall. They say, well, we would like to continue, because it's not like this is not the way it works is the penny stays on. I think right now in Savannah we pay 7% sales tax, and that's where the state is like 5 or 4, and then we've got extra taxes, and that 7th cent is the SPLOST. They're going to ask us to renew that again this fall here in Savannah, and my response to that is, oh, hell no.
Right.
And they can come up, and they will. The city of Savannah will come up, the mayor, et cetera, the city council people, most of them, all the heavyweights, the looky-loos that show up at all the right parties and get photographed with all the right people, and the Chamber of Commerce kids, some of whom are very nice, will all be out there full force pushing for an extension, a renewal, SPLOST 7. And I'm thinking, you guys haven't hit the 40% complete mark from SPLOST 6 capital improvement projects.
Right.
They haven't hit the 60% mark from SPLOST 5. We're going back 15 years in some cases to stuff that's still not done, and it is earmarked in this upcoming SPLOST. Because the last two have both had funds for the arena.
Right.
And the arena they haven't broken ground.
No, they haven't.
Or have they broken ground?
No,
they haven't haven't had the ceremonial shovel thing yet.
I was going to say, yes, they've broken ground. They put 2 holes in the ground so they could put up the sign that said the site of the new arena.
All right, so they did
with the mayor and the city council's pictures along the bottom of it.
So they did the ceremonial thing, but that's it.
I guess it's been done.
But anyway, we are now about to ask us to renew this again. If you are a Savannian, if you know a Savannian, you are listening to the last pod on the right here at thelaststopontheright.com. Also want to remind you to check out KLRN Radio, the podcasting network of awesomeness, because we are a part of their lineup now. Go check them out on Spreaker.
Right.
We're available through iTunes, all the cool. Everybody is. But I mean, no matter what, get your friends to listen to this. Even if you want to, zip through the rest of the podcast, and don't, because you'll miss out on so much coolness. including the opening of the pod beers and some other stuff. If you are Savanian, I want you to take this very seriously, because what they say is just a penny ends up being a bunch of damn money.
Right.
Whether or not it's yours. I mean, if you're like me and you don't buy super nice stuff all the time, so you're not paying as much.
Right.
Still, it is the administration of your tax dollars, whether or not you contributed more or less. I mean, it's still, you have elected these people to handle that money, which you pay.
Right.
And they can't successfully demonstrate an ability to do it. And they're asking again. They're going to ask again this fall for an extension of that 1 penny. But look at this arena project, which isn't, they got a bond issue. So they are, unlike a bond, for those of you who might, I'm not talking down to the audience, a bond is a loan. Okay, you're stocks and bonds.
Right.
You buy stock in a company, then you have bought a piece of the company.
Right.
If you buy a bond from a company, you have just loaned them the cash.
Right.
You will be paid back with interest. So the city is now borrowing money backed by your tax dollars. Okay. Ultimately, it is you as a Savanian upon whom all of this rests. They are now going back. They did not, after 2 splosts over the course of the last decade or so. They did, both of which had money for a new arena. They haven't. We're now in 2019. It is going to be 2020 probably before anything happens.
Right.
Okay. They are now back to asking for money. After all of this time and all of the money, we are into the 9 figures now, by the way. Money that has already been raised. $125 million. Money that's already been raised. They have yet to get it right so that they can get off the drawing board. And they're about to ask you for more money this fall. So in the last Pot on the Right's opening Savannah segment, we wanted to look at something significant that is going to get underplayed because the powers that be don't want you to know about this.
Right.
One of the local newspapers, Connect Savannah, will cover this and has.
Right.
The other local newspaper will give this very cursory gloss over, and then there will be an op-ed near the elections supporting it.
Right.
Because that's what they do. And fine, whatever. But I'm sitting here going, I think people should take a look at what they're getting out of, and I know it gets cliched. Be like, oh man, we're always talking about the way the government wastes our taxes. Our tax dollars at work. It's cliche to joke about it because, of course, and whatever, man. I'm like, well, hey, they're going to ask you for more money. You might want to know if somebody continually asked me for, a little bit here, a little bit there, always the same amount. And hey, can you hit me up again and again and again? Eventually, we're like, what are you doing with this money?
Yeah, no doubt.
Because, I don't really feel like I ever see you actually do it. Like, if you had a bum that met you on the street at the same place, always asked you for $1. And like, okay, a year goes by, 15 years goes by. And this dude keeps coming back and asking for another $1 to, what's I always get the guys that if they get $1, they can get a bus ticket or whatever. Be like, 15 years of asking me for that $1. I feel like you probably should have got on a bus by now.
Yeah. Cross country.
Where the hell is this bus?
What the hell?
What is this? Where is this bus going that you need this many dollars over this much time? Savannah is that guy. The city of Savannah coming to you while they're borrowing money, that they're using basically you as collateral if you're a Savanian. They're that bum. Be like, hey, man, can I get another penny? Can I get another penny?
Right.
Can I get another penny? Well, I've given you a lot of pennies. We have given you a lot of pennies. There is no arena. I've never been convinced that the arena was necessary. Is the Savannah Civic Center a dump? Sure. But
it serves its purpose.
Do we need a gem? Is that going to... Savannah is an amazing town. Savannah sells itself. People flock here to see this place.
Right.
It's really a nifty downtown area. There's cool stuff around it. And we have the largest historic district in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Will the arena make that much of a difference? I feel like you already have enough of a selling point that whether or not our civic arena is nice, I think, oh no, what does that mean? That Rockville 2020 is not going to be in Savannah. It wasn't going to be in Savannah anyway.
No.
All right, fine. Are we not going to get the super headlining actors or the super headlining musical acts? Probably not, but we weren't going to get them anyway.
No.
So they never made the case. So to me, that's as much of a part of it as anything.
Right.
But you looked at the numbers more closely than, and came up with the bond issue thing. And I'm like, well, That's a lot of damn money that I don't really feel like they properly accounted for yet, much less will in the future.
No.
So there you have it, kids. That's something we want to talk about here. We want to get that. We want to let the people in Savannah who live here know that we are still thinking about you.
Right.
I don't know if that warms your heart or frightens you.
This might not be very comforting.
It's like, actually, we'd like for you to stop whenever you're ready. A couple of quick notes before we get out of here. I don't know, Jussie Empire has not been renewed. It's over.
Yep.
Jussie Smollett.
He kicked his own ass.
He kicked the entire show's ass.
He kicked their ass.
How do you not turn that into a ratings boom? But they didn't.
Nope.
So they're done. In a perfect world, Homeboy's going to end up working at a Subway. I'm hoping for that. I want Jussie Smollett. I want to walk into a Subway in Chicago and have Jussie Smollett go, would you like chips and a drink with that?
What kind of bread do you want?
Can I give me the one that they beat you up for? I mean, you were willing to go through that much of a beating for a sub sandwich. It must have been a hell of a sandwich. I want one of those. And we call this a kicker here, kids, in the industry. I don't know if you saw this. The only reason I bring it up is I made a joke about it, and it ended up on Twitter going viral.
Right.
And I'm on Twitter at Bennett Truth. It's BENNETTRUTH. It's
not all
two
in a row.
E's, two N's, 2 E's, 2 N's, 3 T's.
And they're not all in a row.
Bennett's Truth. But my tweets have started to pick up. Every now and then I'll have a tweet that goes viral. So I saw this story in the New York Post yesterday. They are now doing this thing. There is a surgery. A transsexual woman, so a dude, okay, was getting surgically made into a woman. And they were doing the plumbing. They were like actually changing it out or whatever. And there's a new surgical procedure that they're doing where I'm almost afraid to read this. They're using fish skin, or like piece of fish, like a graft of a piece of a fish to make it happen down there so that the transsexual person can. This is a real thing that's happening in the world. You're looking at me like I want to jump out off the roof. I'm like, this is actually happening. So a dude that wants to be a chick, man, get off my planet.
Please stop me. We're going to get in trouble.
A dude that wants to be a chick has had his plumbing changed out, and in a way that they did it, they used a piece of fish to make it. This is literally in the New York Post. I mean, granted, it's the New York Post, but this is an actual thing that is actually happening.
Do I smell tuna?
I see, and as I started to read it, I was like, I want to do this kicker because it's really messed up. But then I realized you were going to probably say something precisely like that. I don't want to. I'm not judging anybody. If you want to turn yourself into somebody that can, camouflage yourself at SeaWorld, then you're fine.
Did you have sushi last night?
But if you're bolting, if you're bolting fish parts to yourself so that you can feel more like the person you are on the inside, then something is just profoundly wrong. I mean, holy mackerel, does this story stand?
Oh my God! I see what you
I don't
did
want
there.
to. I don't want to cheap. I don't want to fish for cheap laughs on this. So I probably should just clam up.
Oh my God!
Well, because you worry, you say something wrong and then you make new anemones. So, for God's sake,
this whole thing.
Believe it or not, this is actually happening.
This whole thing's kind of floundering.
I'd keep going, but I don't think the listeners could bear a coup to it.
Oh God!
I just, I'm putting it out there. I mean, this is. There's something very fishy about the way the world is headed, and I just feel like I don't have the muscles to continue this conversation. The world we live in, kids, it's that weird. My friends, we have had nothing. We've had a lot of fun here. We hope that you have had a lot of fun as well. To all of you who enjoyed our new Savannah segment, our local friends and neighbors, we are so glad to have you along. Kids that are here for the Georgia State Republican Convention, welcome to our town. The big, scary-looking dude with the 3 adorable little dogs, that's me. You can come say hi. We look forward to hearing from you. Again, check me out on Twitter at Bennett Truth. That is 2 E's, 2 N's, 3 T's.
Not a hole in a row.
We are also on Facebook. TheLastStopOnTheRight.com is the website, and The Last Stop on the Right has a Facebook group dedicated to it. You want to track Mikey or Ben, that's me, down on Facebook, you can do that. We'd love to hear from you. You can contact us through the website as well. Man, you're stuck on the fish story.
I am.
You're stuck on the fish story. You are stuck on the fish like it's like a squid, man. It's just on you now. Yeah,
please.
Dear Cod, what a disaster this has been. My friends, we have enjoyed your company, and we look forward to hearing from you. Told you always to do that. Check us out always. LastStopOnTheRight.com. The Last Pod on the Right uploads every weekend. Advertising availabilities are yours. If you want them, contact us immediately for that. Check out the kids, the rest of the programming through their Spreaker channel, KLRN Radio. They've got some good talent on there. We want you to patronize them. And, of course, they're getting involved with the Honor Flight program, which is something that we're proud to just get like a tiny crumb of decency that has fallen off the KLRN table and onto the Last Pod. So,
absolutely.
Hey, man, we're proud to be associated with them, even if they're mortified to be associated with us. For all of the people that are involved in making sure that you get to enjoy this today, the Last Pod on the Right, I am Ben Crystal.
I'm Flounder.
You are terrible human being. He is Mike Abel, and my friends, that does it. We out.